Maybe you can introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what you do, and then we dive right directly into the questions that I have for you.
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm Rafael Hostettler, CEO and founder of Devanthro, the robotic company. We've been the first company in the world putting humanoid robots into private homes. So several weeks people have been living with our robots on their own. This works because we teleoperated, but we learned a lot, of course, going into homes, and plan on being first in the future as well.
When it comes to humanoids, we see a lot of automotive manufacturing videos. With 1X, we saw big announcement, and other companies are also having a few nice videos and demos out there, bringing humanoids into homes. You said you've been the first one deploying. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the challenges and about the things that had been maybe unexpected before you started entering this journey.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what we found is, everyone's home is very narrow. They're very different from each other. You need to modify some environments for the robot to work because some homes they had buttons that are impossible to grasp. I think, though, what's most interesting though is what we found is how quickly the people get used to the robots, in a good and in a bad way. In a good way because they were living with them. I mean, we left them there overnight. We turned it off in the night because we're not operating it. But I was asking them, how was it having a robot, living with the robot? And she's like, oh, she liked it a lot. Because when she went to, from her bedroom to the toilet, she came back to the living room where she saw the robot in the night. And she said, well, I felt protected by it. So that was a very nice finding. It's like really this kind of embodiment actually has value. They really start to personify them. Like when we had one robot had a malfunction, so it was sort of slumping down a bit, and the intuitive reaction of the person was, "Hey, are you okay?" So really, they begin to really see this as a living person that they're with, although they still understand it's of course always a different person depending on who the operator is. And I think the flip side of this immediate trust is that they don't understand anymore what's unsafe. We've seen situations where it was sort of making a dinner on a table, and then suddenly we see a hand coming sort of behind the robot, also grasping into the fridge. She wanted to have something from the fridge. But I mean, she was interacting around the robot. And we designed it very safely, it's soft and everything, but still, like there was no idea that this could be a dangerous situation. If you had a heavy robot, that could have been dangerous. Or then in the end we were making cake, and she was like, "Here's the knife. Can you please cut the cake through the robot?" And I was like, "Sure, but it's an interesting situation. Are you comfortable with the robot actually handling the knife?" And she was, "Yeah, of course." And so it's very interesting that this trust builds very quickly, and I mean, I think that means we also need to be very careful in what you do in terms of safety in these aspects. People who trust these systems, and especially if there's a human operator, that's what we see when we had relatives operating. They immediately the robot became transparent. It was really two people basically communicating and experiencing and experimenting with the system that they have in between them. But it was no longer it's a robot. No, but this is my mom, and this is my daughter controlling the robot, and this is reality. And then they lose also all any kind of hesitations are gone immediately in that moment, which is very beautiful to watch because it's very emotional, but it's also of course an interesting moment because they start to do things which are not necessarily safe. Like it was like, can you massage me, or can you? They tried to comb their hair. They were hugging each other. And these are all fine, but of course, you need to design with this in mind, make the system such that it's safe for these things.
There had been some bigger US and European companies, much louder, much more vocal, and much more present in let's say in the mainstream media. For those who are not familiar too much with what you guys are doing, maybe you can give a little bit more context in what kind of scope we are talking about, what kind of use cases we are talking about, because you were mentioning a few things now, but they are not necessarily covered by the setup that you have at the moment? Maybe you can give here a little bit more context.
Yes, so basically our goal is to allow an elderly person to live independently at home and being able to do through the robot everything they need to be able to do this in collaboration with a caregiver. So there's a physical caregiver that still comes once a day, but the rest of the day it's all handled through the robot. And because this is way too complex and it's also not safe to do autonomous right now, we have teleoperation. The teleoperation of this whole setup, it allows a person to live independently, and it generates for them the value, like alternative solutions to this problem are in the range from 3,000 to 8,000 euros a month. So it creates a lot of value for a person because they can stay at home. And of course the robot is just a part of it. There's a home caregiver which is a part of it. So we're building this full system to really be an alternative to have a living caregiver. It's fully teleoperated whenever it moves. We automatically recognize emergency situations or when someone needs a robot. And the care services that are coming in the morning are also teleoperating throughout the day. And they want to be doing this. It's also something we learned. We didn't expect this, but they were like, we want to be doing this. It's actually something we want to keep this relationship.
Where are the people situated who do the teleoperating?
So if it's the care service themselves, they're sitting in their offices to do that, or at home, actually.
We were talking a lot about the safety aspects here, as it is not a manufacturing line, it's not machine tending, it's not picking, it's like interacting with human beings. And you said that the emotional connection happened very, very easily. So how is it with the safety aspects at the moment? Where are we standing? Where are we standing here? Not only in the humanoid space, but especially as there are other players out there.
Yeah, I mean, we are solving it by not moving the robot except for teleoperation for now. And then also we are very closely tracking what's happening and working with different players to make it safe to move it autonomous over time, because we of course gather training data. So the system will become autonomously capable over time. The nice thing is we can start with things when there's no one around the robot that are autonomous. Like, dusting, nobody needs to be there. And we can just stop it, moving it, or call an operator when this is necessary. So having an operator on call all the time makes it very flexible. It makes it very trivial to sort of keep it safe. And the other thing is we designed the system mechanically safe. So it's covered in a soft surface. So there's nowhere you can pinch anything. You can't hurt yourself. It can't hurt anyone. And it's also not very strong. So the arms cannot move in a way that they can kill someone. They're still arms, so there's a certain weight to it, so they can still hurt someone if it would go crazy. But it's deliberately at the level where we can't actually really hurt someone, so in a lasting way. And of course, the idea is never to hurt anyone.
We had a few guests today, and there's always a big gap between pilot projects, POCs, and especially when it comes to home that is very, as you said, very early, it's so complex, everything is different. Customization is a big topic for customers in general. Doesn't matter what kind of product it is. But how is that for you guys? How do you tackle that? Because at the moment, as far as I understood, through the teleop, you're getting rid of a lot of these kind of problems, but this is not what is the vision, right? Maybe you can talk about this.
No, it's a good question. Right now, exactly as I said, we're capturing this complexity through teleoperation. Having a human, they can naturally handle this. We're also doing some modifications to the environment if it's necessary. Like moving things down a shelf so we can actually access it, or small modifications so we can handle certain things that are usually not too difficult to handle. But mostly we can leave the home in the way it was. So we could be able to do those things. We could hang up clothes, we could make dinner, play games and so on. All this works. So for now, this is sort of the setup we work with, and then how it goes forward, we're really looking to build this, and we're building a way on. So the first step is you basically have the operator start long-running tasks, but what is being started and how this is being collected is sort of in the domain, under control of the operator. And that allows you to make sure that the environment is set up in a way the robot can do it. That's also quite unique because you will have a different kind of setup at every time. The robot stands a bit different. I mean, homes are changing all the time. You're never like a book moves around. You put it wherever you left it last, so you can't just rely on knowing where a book is, for example. Also in the kitchen, things are never at the same place. Like if you think about the life cycle of a plate, it goes from where you store it to being used, to being dirty, to being cleaned, to waiting till it's dry, to back to storage. And of course, it can be in any of those places if you stick to the process. It can also be on the balcony because the person took it with them and that's where he wanted to take
Summer,
it.
right? So
Exactly. And I think that's sort of the reality that especially people do whatever they want and they change environments in ways you cannot predict. And there's also the nice thing is that you have an operator that can handle this complexity still. And then over time, we will be finding ways to automate also these aspects.
So this is on the roadmap.
Yeah.
And as I was asking before, the differences between the approaches that the Americans go or the Chinese one, for example, because when we are on these kind of fairs or exhibitions, we do see the American ones and we do see the Chinese ones. But how is it being a German company in Europe and with all the regulations and safety aspects? I had a guest earlier that was talking about this, but maybe I can get your take on that.
I think the hardest thing here is finding investors. It's like this kind of visionary idea is something that just doesn't click a lot less in Europe. There's a lot less interest I see also in humanoids in general. I hear much more. It's like, yeah, we looked at humanoids. We're not convinced that they're really a game changer, and much less like much more people are much more investors are much more down to so much less this sort of big projections are not clicking as much. But in terms of deployment, I can't complain. I mean, we have not been limited by regulatory burdens. We did for the study when we did the deployments into private homes, because it was associated and sort of accompanied by Charité Berlin. It was also research. It's going to be published, so we had a full ethics analysis and everything. And of course, that took time. But I mean, just you would anywhere. I mean, that's just because of going through the academic process. Actually, doing test deployments, we don't see big limitations. They are very open. We also didn't have an issue finding an insurance covering our liability for that. We were surprised as well, but it was not a problem. And I have different. So we have one now, but we also had others who were making quotes for that, and they were all very reasonable.
So hospitality is the first use case you're going to aim to solve.
I mean, we're basically looking for helping people with dementia stay in home, so in private home, and guiding them through the day and making sure that they can live independently.
And I mean, you don't need to answer that, but regarding the market size, when you look at the other companies that are in that space and the use cases and partners they are collaborating with and aiming to solve, is quite different, right? And what do you think is the main reason why you're going to stick with that?
I think it's actually a prejudice. If you look at our market, so global home care is a multi-trillion-dollar market. Home care just in our core market and just in our absolute ICP. So these are people with dementia at the level that they need us. That they're wealthy enough to afford it out of pocket. They are living alone, so they don't have a partner that can cover for them. So there is around 35,000 people of that in Germany, and this on its own is $1 billion market, just in Germany. So the markets are huge, and they are there, and then we are basically positioning us against alternatives like going to a care home or hiring a living caregiver. And in Germany alone, there is around 700,000 living caregivers. So that's a very big market, and it's a market that is drying up more and more because, of course, this generative change that we see, which is the whole reason why we are required, it also happens in Eastern Europe where the whole caregivers are coming from. So now they try to get caregivers from further away, from Brazil and also from Asia. But honestly, the numbers that we're seeing, they never capture what is needed. It's also politically very difficult getting people to Germany. That's really bureaucratic. So I don't think so. What we're seeing is basically the labor gap is growing. So right now there's 180,000 people missing, caregiver missing in Germany just for home care. So it's a vast market.
Then what do you think? I mean, there most likely will be some assumptions, but then there might be some data points that are supporting a theory that you might have regarding the difficulty of raising money.
I mean, it's just what we are seeing when we talk. So we've been at different conferences talking to deep tech investors, and I mean, I think one of the things, of course, as a care doesn't feel like a very sexy market. It's financially great, but thinking about care is also thinking about aging and death and all these problems. So that maybe plays into it as well.
So, and do you think that there's a difference between, because I'm really trying to get to the bottom of what is the difference between the Europeans and the Americans, for example, when it comes to investing money? Because the number game alone should be then easy for you guys to raise. So is the technology not ready? Is it the topic that is, as you said, maybe not sexy enough, or is that maybe because it's so close to people? Is that something that is, yeah?
I mean, so the closeness to people, we don't get much as a negative feedback. What we do get is sort of as care as a complex market. So maybe that's a bit implicit with the people. I think everyone outside of robotics, so we are really vocal about teleoperation first, right? Because we even have the face of the person that operates visible. And it kind of conflicts with this idea and vision of a humanoid robot that does everything for you. So while what I'm seeing we're pitching is like, but I still need people. And that the fact that everyone needs this, everyone else is just not as vocal about it, that just doesn't probably help our case as much. And then when we talk to care investors, it's more about, robotics is very complex, you don't understand it. So that's sort of the combination, I think, where it's a bit difficult. But if you look at how many funded humanoid companies we have in Europe, it's maybe 2.
Yeah.
So it's not just us.
3, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it's just I think it's a European thing that makes it difficult.
I mean, it's good to have players here that would like to go this very hard and expensive route. So, what I like to ask the other guests is there anything that you would like to point out? Because there's sometimes a launch, there's sometimes a raising round, there's sometimes a new product coming up, and I would like to give you the opportunity to give us a little sneak peek. So, is there anything you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, we are maybe 2 things. One, we are raising right now, so it's just a small round to get basically to the system continuous in the market. Basically, really having for elderlies relying on us being there 24/7. Because once we have that, we basically know that the model works and everything is sort of in place. And then the other thing is we're going to be doing some very interesting pilots upcoming. Where we find some very unconventional operators. Look out for our communications on that. I think it will be very interesting because it's another way of solving this caregiver crisis, because we find operators and locations that you wouldn't expect.
I mean, it is interesting from many things. As you said, the use case itself, not everyone is having a look at that. But also as you mentioned, the being very vocal about the teleop. Because Elon and all the other ones, don't need to mention any other names, as you said, they are still in that phase. So, but they're not as vocal about this. They're not being upfront. So there's a gap of the perception of people. Like, those robots, I've seen videos, they can walk around, they can do everything. And I think this is hard for companies selling these things long term, because the expectations are very high, especially for startups and this technology. Do you think that you are doing a much better job here, even though it makes some things like raising money harder, but adoption of the product easier?
I think so. I think we are much more closer to actually deploying the product in the actual use case, because our product doesn't rely on actually having solved the autonomy problem, and our problem has sort of the expectation that there's an operator baked into it from the end customer side. Because if you think about, for example, 1X deploying their robots into private homes, I'm not sure people expect that there's going to be a remote operator, but there needs to be one because they will never be at the level that they can do this autonomously. So there might be quite some mismatch in that regard, and we will have to see what that means and how these people are reacting to this. If the more honest ways or the more open way in that regard pays out in the end, we'll see. I mean, obviously, it's in terms of garnering attention, it's probably not. It's the worst strategy, obviously, because it's
Makes things harder.
yeah, sure. I mean, it's less kind of this big vision of autonomous systems that do all the things we don't want to be doing, and there's still the complexity of handling people in it, and that, of course, while it's a reality for everyone, it's having it explicit means people also explicitly think about it, and for others, they might abstract it away.
It was interesting to get a take, being really close, as you said, being one of the first ones who do deployment, and not as, because I think it is kind of boring. I mean, manufacturing is not for everyone, and not everyone has a factory at home, but everyone has a home, right? So
Yeah.
it's nice to see that we are here putting the focus on things that are much closer to us, and that we will experience much earlier, because the adoption in some factory will not be something that will affect me right away or be very very
Yeah. No, you're not
visual.
going to be seeing that,
Yeah.
and you don't care, right? I mean, you don't care how this is built.
Yeah. I wish you guys all the best. I mean, there's the more companies coming out of Germany and Europe building humanoid robots and solving problems in the real world that are not only as shiny but like really useful. And even though providing value is kind of a buzzword, it's really something. As you said, the market is growing only bigger when you look at the demographics. So
Yeah. I mean, the market is on fire in a good and in a bad way.
yeah, thanks for being here with us and giving us some insights in how to build a company, but also how to see humanoids, the human part of it, right? Because we're not providing value in machine tending. We are providing value in helping elderly people being more independent on their own and enjoying life. And I think this is definitely something that is worth seeking to solve. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Take care.